I'm not gonna hold you. Miami's doing everything in its power to try to convince themselves that taking Tua in the draft wasn't a bust move. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'm your host, Gabo Say, so we're back with another one. Miami Dolphins are planning to build around Tua. What else is new? I've been saying it, I think it's from like 2 years ago, bro. I don't think Tua is a bad quarterback personally. He's top 10, no doubt about it. It's just with the pieces that he has to work with, this kid needs to be prolific. We're living in the Mahomes era. I say all the time, he's the final boss of the National Football League. He's been baby sistering the likes of Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and you could throw Tua in there. And it's to the point where you just got to look at it for what it is, bro. It don't matter what you give Tua, bro. Like, he's a great regular season quarterback, but when it comes to winning a championship, I just don't believe he got what it takes to win a chip. But Miami Dolphin fans, feel free to always disagree with me. I just don't think he's going to deliver it. But we're going to see. They're trying to build around him. Let's get it.
In March, salary cap wise. We'll work through it and see if we can get something done.
Like, me and Flores probably wasn't no buddy this and that, but I respect him.
Over the last 2 seasons, the Miami Dolphins have reached a new level as a franchise. The hiring of head coach Mike McDaniel in 2022 brought a fresh and vibrant aura to an organization in the midst of a 5-year playoff drought. The addition of Tyreek Hill and the resurgence of young quarterback Tua Tagovailoa helped propel the Dolphins to the playoffs in the first season of Mike McDaniel's fast-paced offensive scheme. Miami's offense hit another level in 2023, and crucially, their defense took a significant step forward as well. The Dolphins won 11 games and made the postseason for the second consecutive season, and while they froze up against the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, their future appears to be much brighter than it was before Mike McDaniel arrived. But a big season from the team means that key contributors are looking to get paid, something that's proving difficult for the Dolphins to do considering their cap situation entering free agency. And as a result, their defense has been picked apart by free agency and cap saving cuts, while the team also has to navigate major contract questions surrounding their star wide receivers and, most importantly, their quarterback. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow.
The fact that they're not even really paying Tua is what's helping them accumulate like these talents on the roster, bro. When it's time to pay Tua, son, don't be surprised if Jalen Ramsey gotta go or some of the defensive pieces gotta go, bro. Like, Tua's gonna warrant 150 mil guarantee. No, maybe not guarantee. Who knows? Maybe. That is if they choose to keep him. I don't think it's a wise choice, but we'll get to it.
Talent would be an uphill battle. The NFL salary cap increased to over $255 million for 2024, an unexpected spike of over $30 million from last season. Still, the Dolphins began free agency more than $38 million over the salary cap, the league's third worst cap situation, and one of just 7 teams who were over the cap. Even with a much better cap situation than originally expected, Miami still faced a significant disadvantage in free agency. Cutting players to clear cap space and restructuring contracts are the only way the Dolphins can hold together a team that excelled in so many areas last season. And to give you an idea of how awesome the Dolphins were, in 2023, the Miami Dolphins led the league in offensive yards and finished second in scoring with nearly 500 points during the season. The Dolphins scored at least 30 points 8 times last season, winning every time they reached that threshold. That included 70 points in a victory over Denver, the most points scored by one team in a game since 1966. Their offense was a lead, but they were already operating as a top 10 offense in 2022. It was their defense that took an even bigger step in 2023. While their scoring defense ranked just 22nd, Miami allowed the 10th fewest yards per game. They were particularly a menace at preventing the run, owning the league's 7th best rushing defense, while only 4 teams recovered more fumbles than them. Overall, the Dolphins ranked 5th in point differential and 2nd in yardage differential, but those numbers will be hard to maintain, especially with 26 players who were scheduled to become unrestricted free agents, including multiple players in the defense's front 7. Even general manager Chris Grier had to address the reality of the situation in the aftermath of the Dolphins' playoff loss.
At the end of the day, we have good players here, and everyone will have a market. We're not really right now concerned about where we'll be in March, salary cap wise. I think, Brandon Shore, Max Napolitano, we've had a lot of conversations. They've given us a lot of flexibility with multiple options of ways we can, be creative. And so hats off to them just, through their work and grind on things. And so Mike, Brandon, and I will have a lot of discussions, and we'll talk with Steve as we get through here, and we'll try and keep as many of the players here that we can.
Now, when Greer talks about ways for them to be creative, he's referring to the options that the Dolphins have to free up cap space. That usually means restructuring contracts already on their books, but it also means that the Dolphins had to part with some significant contributors. And unfortunately, they got to work making difficult cuts before free agency even began in order to be cap compliant by the start of the new league year. In late February, the Dolphins made the first of a series of cuts that greatly impacted the defense in particular. They began by releasing defensive end Emmanuel Ogbah less than 2 years after signing him to a massive 4-year extension. This move alone saved the Miami Dolphins $13 million, but it cost them a valuable pass rusher who bounced back after an injury-plagued season in 2022. That same day, Miami informed their longest tenured player that they'd be releasing him. After 8 seasons, cornerback Xavier Howard, a former first-team All-Pro and 4-time Pro Bowler, was told that he would be released. The team would save $18.5 million in cap space by officially releasing him after June 1st. He had signed a record-breaking extension in 2022, a year after publicly requesting a trade, but he'll be released with 3 years left. Recently, Xavier Howard even threw a little bit of shade at his former.
Imagine cutting a player with 3 years left on his contract. That's why they always tell you, don't ever pay attention to the big number at the end of the contract. Always listen to the guarantee, bro. That man signed a 5-year deal thinking he was Gucci in Miami. Once he got the guaranteed money out the way, the team was free to cut him with no consequences, bro. So all that money he thought he was going to get, air ball. Like, that should be so cold. But I understand the business on the National Football League, but they be offering the worst contracts out of all major sports. If we just going to keep it a beam, bro. I'll be damned if I signed a 5-year deal, but yet you could cancel me after 2 years. So now the money on the back end is not owed to me? Look at the running back contract situation, bro. I'm telling you, the NFL just... You would think a sport that requires all that physicality where any play could end your career, you would get guaranteed money. You know, any play, any tackle, any run could end your career, bro. And they still keep getting away with lowballing athletes on their contracts. And the National Football League is one of the most viewed sports globally. It's crazy, bro.
3 years left.
They're making more money than everybody.
Howard even threw a little bit of shade at his former head coach, Mike McDaniel.
Brian Flores was like that, bro. He was a player coach guy, though, but it was like he came from the Patriots, so it's like he seen greatness from the GOAT.
Yeah.
He held everybody to a standard.
Yeah.
Like, me and Flores probably wasn't no buddy this and that, but I respect him.
Or you could view this as Xavier Howard trying to reunite with his former head coach, Brian Flores. In early March, Miami made 2 more cuts, continuing to chip away at their defense. First, they released cornerback Keon Crossan to save nearly $3 million after he missed the entire 2023 season with an injury in training camp. They followed that move by releasing yet another one of their longest tenured players later that day. Miami released linebacker Jerome Baker in order to save just under $10 million. Baker had played with the Dolphins for the previous 6 seasons while he initially agreed to take a pay cut to return for year 7. He couldn't agree with the team on how steep the pay cut would be. He became the second longtime Dolphin to become a casualty of the team's cap crunch. The Dolphins did add to their defense in the interim, but it was mostly smaller contracts on players who won't exactly move the needle. Before the NFL's legal tampering period, the Dolphins brought back 2 players from their secondary, defensive backs Nick Needham and Elijah Campbell. Although they both mostly played on special teams, they added 2 defensive linemen on 1-year deals, Isaiah Mack and Dejion Nixon, but neither have a track record of much production, and they're closer to training camp bodies than true difference makers, which is probably why I butchered one of their names. Sorry about that, Nixon. They re-signed their punter to a 2-year contract worth up to $5 million, but there was a light at the end of the tunnel, because as this was going on,
imagine paying someone $5 million to kick the ball away.
Good contracts, signing tight end Jonnu Smith to a 2-year contract worth up to $10 million, filling one of the few holes in Miami's strong arsenal of skill position players. But as the legal tampering period of
random, you paying a punter $5 million to give the ball away. I'm telling $5 million, and all your job is to kick the ball away to the opposing team, to give the opposing team a possession. You can almost make it like punters get paid more money than running backs should get paid, bro. Punters are overpaid. $5 million to kick the ball away is crazy.
officially got underway on Monday, it became clear that the Dolphins would be suffering some major losses on defense. Miami restructured 4 contracts, including Jalen Ramsey's, to clear just under $29 million in cap space, but it would do little to stop the bleeding. Their first loss was safety Brandon Jones, who signed with the Denver Broncos on a 3-year deal worth $20 million. While that's a notable loss, it paled in comparison to the major departures that came soon after. Miami's best free agent, defensive tackle Christian Wilkins, signed one of the biggest free agent contracts of the offseason with the Las Vegas Raiders. 4 years, $110 million, with nearly $85 million guaranteed. Just imagine Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby coming at you, man. Whew. Wilkins and the team had contract disputes before the season, including a hold-in during training camp. The Dolphins elected not to franchise tag him for a guaranteed $22 million, which makes sense that they'd be unable or unwilling to match the Raiders' offer of about $27.5 million per year. But this is a huge loss for Miami, with Wilkins serving as the anchor of Miami's stout run defense. The former first-round pick set an NFL record in 2022 with 98 tackles. This is the most ever by a defensive tackle in NFL history. Wilkins owns the 8th highest run-stop win rate since he entered the league in 2019. The biggest knock on Wilkins was his lack of sacks compared to other top defensive tackles, but he posted a career-high 9 sacks in 2023, the 4th most among defensive tackles and the 3rd on the team. After losing Wilkins, Miami's losses on defense only got worse. On top of Wilkins, linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel agreed to a 2-year deal with the Minnesota Vikings for $20 million, including $14 million guaranteed. Van Ginkel, who will reunite with former Dolphins coach Brian Flores in Minnesota, had a great all-around season and became a fan favorite during 5 seasons in Miami. A former 5th-round pick, Van Ginkel played all over the field last season, from inside linebacker to edge rusher, helping fill the void left by season-ending injuries to Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips late in the season. Van Ginkel nearly matched his career high in tackles while setting a career high with 6 sacks and even had his first career touchdown on a 33-yard pick 6. That versatility will be hard to replace, although the Dolphins have certainly tried to fill the void at the position. They signed linebacker Anthony Walker to a 1-year deal after he spent the previous 3 years on the vaunted Cleveland Browns defense. Their biggest defensive contract was given to linebacker Jordan Brooks, who signed a 3-year, $30 million contract to essentially replace Jerome Baker. Brooks is coming off of 3 consecutive seasons with over 100 tackles and a career-high 4.5 sacks. With an unclear return timeline for Phillips and Chubb, Miami signed veteran edge rusher Shaq Barrett to a 1-year deal worth up to $9 million. But this comes after Tampa Bay released the 31-year-old after a rough 2-year stretch during which he missed half of 2022 with an injury and only amassed a combined 7.5 sacks. Shaq Barrett's not the same player who had 19.5 sacks in 2019 and is better suited for a rotational role at this stage of his career, but he might have to carry an outsized pass rush load early in the season. But this wouldn't be the only impressive move Miami would make during the offseason. After their division rival Buffalo Bills had to cut safety Jordan Poyer as a cap casualty, Miami snatched him up on a 1-year deal. Signing a division rival's former captain after playing against him for 7 seasons is certainly a boon for the Dolphins, although it carries some risk, even on a 1-year prove-it contract. Poyer had a big drop-off in his coverage numbers from last season, the area where Miami's defense struggled the most. Plus, he'll be 33 years old, and his best years appear to have already gone by. Signing veterans on a 1-year contracts can help, but in the big picture, there doesn't appear to be a lot of good young talent on Miami's defense. They've also lost many of their tenured defensive players who helped bring the team back to relevance, including another blow to the defensive line when Raekwon Davis signed a deal with the Indianapolis Colts. As free agency officially got underway, there's already been a consistent trend emerging during Miami's offseason. The Dolphins have been much more active, using the defense for cost-cutting measures, and that side of the ball took on the brunt of the team's salary-based releases and contract restructures. The Dolphins' ability to sign big deals was already limited, and outside of Jordan Brooks, Miami has yet to hand out a sizable defensive contract. On offense, they signed Jonnu Smith, but also center Aaron Brewer to a 3-year contract worth $21 million, seemingly replacing free agent Connor Williams, who's coming off of a torn ACL. They also brought back versatile offensive lineman Robert Jones on a 1-year deal, but even Miami's offense couldn't completely escape the cap crunch. Offensive guard Robert Hunt was lured away to the Carolina Panthers on a 5-year deal worth up to $100
money that's being thrown
million,
at these big
dealing
men,
Miami
man.
their biggest loss on offense. However, their status as a contender may be what allows them to at least partially circumvent their cap problems. Drew Rosenhaus said that 4 of his clients, Shaq Barrett, Jordan Poyer, Jonnu Smith, and Braxton Berrios, who re-signed in late March, all took less money to sign with the Dolphins to have a chance to win a Super Bowl, and also cited the team's top ranking in the annual Players Association survey. And that could also be what lands them Odell Beckham Jr. OBJ recently met with the Dolphins, and a team source said that the meeting went well and that the team hopes to sign him. It's just a matter of agreeing on a price after he finished a 1-year $15 million deal with Baltimore. But in addition to their difficult cap situation, the Dolphins may be holding back on their overall spending because they're planning on making a bigger financial commitment elsewhere on the roster. The best part of Miami's team last season was unquestionably their passing attack. Tua led the league in passing yards and tied for 5th in touchdown passes. Tyreek Hill led the league in receiving yards while finishing 2nd in receptions. Meanwhile, Jalen Waddle had his 3rd consecutive 1,000-yard season to begin his career. Logically, these 3 players carry some of the team's largest cap hits, or their impending contracts will one day carry the team's largest cap hits. Hill has been everything Miami could have ever hoped for since they traded for him, arguably the league's best receiver over the last 2 seasons. Hill's dangerous speed is the apex of Miami's explosive offense as one of the hardest players to cover in the NFL. However, as he enters his 30s, he also owns the 15th highest cap hit in the NFL at over $31 million for next season. That number will increase to $34 million in 2025 and a whopping $56 million in 2026.
And they say, what was the last team in NFL? What was it? What was the last team in the NFL to win a Super Bowl with a wide receiver getting paid the most money in the league? It just doesn't happen, bro. It just doesn't happen. Wide receiver, like, damn. And the thing is, Tyreek is worth it. It's bro, but sheesh, man, $56 million is this a $56 million cap hit?
In 2025 and a whopping $56 million in 2026, at which point he'll earn a base salary of nearly $44 million. That's not an immediate concern for the Miami Dolphins, but Miami may have to restructure his contract again like they did last year in order to address more pressing needs. The number one question facing the Dolphins this offseason is still unanswered, and that's the future of their quarterback. We made a video on the team's options with Tua in mid-January, and one major piece of news we've received since then is that the Dolphins and his representatives are currently negotiating an extension. It doesn't seem likely that Miami will have Tua play on his 5th-year option that will pay him $23 million. GM Chris Greer had this to say about his negotiations during the NFL Combine.
Yeah, we've been in communication since the offseason began. I'm going to talk to his agent here this week. Yeah, so our goal is to try and see if we can get something done. Ryan's been great, Tua's been great, so we'll see. But there's no timeline on it, because at the end of the day, you know how these deals get done. They're complicated deals, and building the team through free agency as well. So we'll work through it and see if we can get something done. You try and work through it, and you have rational discussions with people, and as agents, as representations are really good people. We've had great conversations. So at the end of the day, what he's looking for in terms of, because the money went up, does that drive his salary up? I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
Now, Tua picked a great time to have a career season as he approaches the precipice of a new contract, especially when considering this year's cap spike. Tua could be gunning for a deal that pays him over $50 million a year. That would at least put him in the zip code of the top 4 highest paid QBs. But a deal similar to those of Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts has lasting effects which have already begun to play out in Miami. To this point in free agency, the Dolphins have appeared to have taken a net loss on defense. That's not an ideal situation for a team expecting to take the next step in 2024, and even more difficult for first-time defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver. If Miami does the expected and extends Tua with a massive contract, that means they'll be counting on him to replicate last season's production moving forward, and of course, stay healthy. Tua played in every game last season, but his overall injury history recommends caution. Even while assuming that Miami has full faith in Tua moving forward, his contract negotiations are already shaping how their roster will be built, and the Dolphins will need to make sure they'll be able to manufacture enough cap space for their upcoming negotiations with Jalen Waddle. Waddle still has time before he hits free agency. He has one more year left on his rookie contract for about $8.6 million and an upcoming 5th-year option that Miami will most likely pick up for about $15.5 million. The need to extend him isn't as time sensitive as Tua, but with Hill entering his 30s and a higher cap than expected, there's a chance that a deal could get it done as soon as this year now that he's eligible. While he likely won't get a deal quite like Justin Jefferson, Waddle is a key piece to sustaining Miami's passing attack moving forward, and Chris Greer explicitly shot down trade rumors about him, while Tyreek Hill has boldly proclaimed that Waddle is the Dolphins' future. Whether it's this year or next, Waddle does indeed appear to be firmly in Miami's big picture plans, barring any unforeseen circumstances. The Dolphins' ability to win the AFC East for the first time since 2008, and the ease with which they can make major financial decisions moving forward, hinges on the moves being made this offseason. This could be the year they finally earn a home playoff game. Critical for a team that just lost 2 games in Miami last season, but the losses on defense could lead to a costly step back, which will haunt this franchise for future years to come. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you expect the Miami Dolphins to take a huge step forward this year? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.
I'll say this, considering it's the AFC East that they're in right now, with the Bills literally getting rid of everyone, New England not even in the discussion, and it hurts me as a Patriot fan to not even be in a conversation towards Super Bowl or even winning the division. It's Miami and the Jets, in my opinion. I think Miami overall has the best out of all 4 rosters. Tua, I mean, leading the league in passing yards. The numbers are there. It's just, can he win those big games? And that was what my opening statement was about. It's like, it's not the fact that is he good enough to play. He's good enough to play, but you're going to have to pay $50 million to a dude with an injury history, who doesn't have the strongest arm, and he's going to be competing potentially against the Patrick Mahomes, the Lamar Jackson, the Joe Burrows, and et cetera, et cetera. Can he do it? I just don't see it, but we'll see. Only time could tell, bro. But they got a lot of money invested in that roster, boy. Damn. Miami, I mean, at the end of the day, as a Dolphin fan, what a time to be alive, man. It's shit, man. I wish I had half the time Miami got. But I'm going to holler at you guys next video. This was Miami Dolphins' new plan to build around Tua. And they're doing it, bro. They're exhausting everything to build around Tua. It's, can he deliver? And can he stay long enough to deliver? We'll see.